All right. So, welcome to Nuito's first stream. My name is Ross Rollins, and I'm going to walk through character creation for this game because character creation is undeniably the crunchiest part of the game. It was designed that way to make it rewardingly in depth as far as customization goes, but then with the rest of the game not being too, hopefully, bogged down with crunchy rules and details, such that it might take you an hour to make your first character, but then after that, you should be able to whip through an actual scene fairly quickly. Some of the folks in the chat here are currently playtesters and can attest to the fact that it does end up working okay, despite how this walkthrough goes. This is my first attempt at anything Twitch related and a not in person demonstration of character walkthrough. I'm going to be making up a character as I go today. I conceived of a character last night, but I wanted to show an authentic, clunky click through of how to make a character rather than to just recreate one that I've made in the past, which would be deceptively easy. Um, so I'll get started with that. Something that you guys might be interested in is that years ago I started collecting imagery that was, my mood board, my concept board for Nuito. And for anyone that's familiar with the quick start, there's a there's a lot of content there, and everything from traditional samurai to science fiction. And so this Pinterest is just a dump of Nuito concepts, characters, imagery, vehicles, everything like that. And so this morning when I got up, what's going on? I scrolled through this board looking for a character that I had not made yet, and that hadn't been conceived of and hadn't actually been discussed too much with my playtest groups or with Scott's playtest group, and nothing that had been made online with all the Discord fans so far. So I decided to try to make a healer. Now, there's a quite an obvious healer type in Nuito, and that's the Way of Five. They are traditional surgeons and doctors, and they are a magic using path and gain quite handy, useful access to regeneration and health boosts. But that was too easy. It'd be a kind of a one-dimensional character if I did that. So I thought I'd walk through a bit more of a complicated character creation here. So I've decided to make a Hisanaka, one of the robots, in a non-healing path, showing how they can be a healer. So I found one of the various images here, and if anyone is interested, I could share this mood board. It's none of it is my art. This is all just collected. So obviously this is all copyrighted elsewhere, and I don't use it for anything public. But this was just for moods and NPC concepts and helping my very early game testers conceive of and understand the world. But I can share this if people are interested. Anyways, I dug through and resaved him at the top here. This fellow. So loosely, this looks like an Oni and a Hisanaka. So one of the androids. Hisanaka are typically a little bit tougher than the rest of the lineages, and the Oni are also a little bit tougher than the rest of the lineages, which will make this guy a little bit more able to stand up to some punishment if he ends up in a combat role. But his main use will be, or at least is intended to be, we'll see how it shakes out during creation here today, is as a healer and support character. So I'm hoping that this works. Is there any lag? You guys give me a thumbs up if I'm speaking the right volume. Clicking through is laggy, anything like that. I think I've set the resolution low enough that it shouldn't be too bad. Take the silence as a yes. Beauty, thank you. So I have the form fillable PDF here, and when you make a new character, there's the concept part of, you know, what lineage and path do I want. But you can go back a little bit further if this is your first run through with what do you picture a role for your character to do in the world of New Edo. And I've just kind of run through what I want this guy to be is a healer and a bit of a, we'll get into it in a moment, a specialist in wetware. So kind of a Ripper Doc from cyberpunk tropes. You know, he's not the most emotional or helpful guy on earth, but he can glue your arm back arm if it gets cut off and or replace it with some machinery, which would probably be the more ideal solution. So the second part of character creation is priority buy. And priority buy is the complicated assigning, okay, this is more important than this, etc., etc. Before you even get there, I usually like to fill in the parts of the character sheet that your path and your lineage grant you, because those will start to affect how you pull the rest of your decisions. If you've got a big bonus to heart already, for example, from your lineage, that is loosely your race, you know that you don't have to spend as many points on traits, core traits later on. I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I'm just going to show. I don't have a name for this guy yet. We'll think of it as we go. But lineage, he's going to be an Oni. And he will be Hisanaka, but we'll get to that in a moment. As an Oni, I'm going to have him, be the culture 2. Each lineage gets 2 culture options. They get physical bonuses and then cultural bonuses. So I have to fill these all in on the sheet, but I have to choose between culture 1, which is basically a tougher tank combat role, and culture 2, which is a bit more of a social role in the group, I mean. So I can flip back and put culture 2, and then I get to add these bonuses around. So size 4, I'm going to change that though, +3 heart, HP modifier. So heart starts at, everything starts at 10, and heart gets +3 for being an Oni. And based on his culture 2, he'll also get +3 for +3 presence. So starts at 10, +3. And this is just how I crib all my notes while I'm making them. I usually do it on paper, but I didn't want to try to get a camera set up for my writing, and it's almost illegible anyways. Size 4. And HP mod starts at 1.5. And I'll show how what these all do later. But because he's an Oni, he gets a boost by 0.5. So his HP modifier will be 2.0. The lift modifier is not recorded, I don't think, anywhere on these character sheets. So let's just breeze past that right now. It's a little bit of a niche use of can your Oni lift a car or a motorcycle or another character. But that's a little bit too granular for our purposes today. And the last thing I have to add is this fate card line, +3%. One target within 10 meters becomes afraid of you for my path rank in rounds. So I'm just going to crib that onto the guy's fate card here. It's a pretty cool one, so I put it up high. It doesn't matter where you put things on your fate card. This, for, I hope, well, if anyone hasn't read through the the quick start before, the fate card is a lottery for fun shit to happen. It's mostly good, but there is some bad. And so this is the first time you'll see it. It is a D100 percentage chance for some cool shit to happen. And the various powers, abilities, augmentations, lineage, path, all of that can grant fates, such that some will have a lot of their fate card filled up, a lot of the numbers between 0 and 100, or 1 and 100, and some will have not very many. But we'll see how this guy shakes out. So, one target within 10 meters becomes afraid for rank rounds. Afraid is a status condition, and we won't get into that at the moment. We'll notice that 3% starting with 60 is 60 to 62, not 60 to 63, which is a common mistake. And that, I think, is everything for his Oni lineage. Now, I am going to assign in the priority by process priority A to augmentations, which gives him the option to choose a mechanical lineage on top of his biological lineage. Basically, he's turned himself into an android cyborg, half biological goop, half mechanical parts. And that's just inspired by this cool looking image that I thought, okay, this guy looks like a cyber Oni demon doctor, and that's his scalpel, not a katana. Um, so then I go to the Hisanaka lineage, which is only purchasable if you choose priority A in augmentations, and we'll get back to that. This lets me change size 4, 5, or 6. Basically, they've rearranged their body so much that they can change their size. And this is a permanent choice. In New Edo, larger numbers are smaller characters for various systems and mathematical reasons. Uh, Admittedly, it is not the most elegant system that way. It works out for math and systems, but it doesn't work out intuitively because everything else in this game, bigger is better. And I'm open to suggestions on how to fix that, but we're not going to get into that right now. So I'm going to make him a size 5 because he's not going to be um, using. Size makes it easier to hit you in combat with ranged weapons, but it also makes you faster. Bigger creatures can move more. Since he doesn't need to move around that much, I'm just going to make him kind of the average size of most characters is 5, so I'm going to change that. Change him to size 5. He gains +3 power. Power is your offensive potential on a personal level. So hitting things with melee weapons, your fists, your feet, anything you find around the room, that will use power regardless of whether it's dexterity based or strength based from certain D20 style games that you may be familiar with. And here's where you start to record some of the other things that it's easy to breeze by if you just kind of, okay, I'm an Oni, I can go on and do something else. He's immune to biological damage, so I can put that just in his abilities over here. This is a dump spot for anything that you want to write about your character, usually for systems and technical bonuses. So, immune to biological damage. And I can probably just put an X over here too, because he can't get hurt by it. Gains +5 resolve. Resolve is a derived trait that is basically your social defense. So anytime somebody tries to use an inimical social role on you, whether that's sweet talking you, charming you, intimidating you, seducing you, your resolve is your character's ability to resist that. And many role playing games breeze over social aspects, especially some of the bigger, more common ones. My role playing history is largely with Legend of the Five Rings and World of Darkness, both of which did a great job of encouraging social aspects of the game. But a lot of it is left to players to say, well, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't fall for that. I wouldn't blah, 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 blah. And which is disingenuous because if you've made a character that doesn't have a lot of willpower or is a sucker, even if you as a player aren't a sucker, your character has to take actions like a sucker. The same way you can't say, well, I would duck that sword. You can't say, well, I would be immune to that intimidation attempt. So resolve is a systems way to implement the same kind of parameters as you have in combat and other conflict resolution. But it's up to your table how thoroughly it needs to or wants to be applied, etc. If you find that social resolutions are better left to role playing, I'm certainly not going to get in the way of that. But getting back to this character here, because he's had most of his goop scooped out, he is less subject to emotional manipulation. So +5 resolve. Also, his rest modifier is increased by 1.0. You'll find in the quick start that rest modifiers start at 2. So I'm just going to put that down here. Rest modifier is 3. So every time he rests, he will regain 15 hit points. So that's it for his lineage. I know that I didn't go through much of the lore of the lineages, and I apologize about that, but if anyone wants to talk about the lore, there's a lot more going on in the Discord channel. And some of the guys and girls get into it pretty deeply, which is awesome. The quick start is light on lore because it's already 120 pages without all my fluff and world building. But the full book will have lots and lots and lots of details here based on years of building these guys, running stories with them, running back stories for this world. There's a lot there to really flesh out what seems in the quick start to be superficial treatment of the different lineages. So with the lineages recorded on here, and I've probably missed something. Yeah. I will now go on to his path, which is another part that is outside of the priority by purchase. So of his paths, what the concept again is a kind of a street doctor, bone saw or sawbones. I want to make him a wetware engineer, the kind of doctor or NPC you might go to have augmentations installed or improved. So that skill is wetware, which I believe one or two of the paths get an automatic boost to. But because I'm trying to exemplify here some of the different paths and different approaches to character making, I'm not going to use the Saibishi or the Way of Five. I think both have wetware as a bonus skill. I'm not trying to optimize his character. He's more going to be an NPC that everyone would be free to use as a chop doc in their stories in the future. So that gives me a bit more leeway to build in roleplay fluff character development that isn't just how hard he can hit. So with that in mind, I'm going to make him an Onmyoji. Again, Onmyoji, there's a bit of fluff in here. They are... they used to be the mystical power in the Empire and kind of got supplanted as more effectual magic, and technology and economies came in and overrode their abilities. Onmyoji use a unique style of magic that does not use the game's core magic mechanics. It's quite limited in that they're not casting fireballs or turning invisible, but they do have a very adaptive use for their magic. If anyone's played many Japanese themed, particularly feudal themed video games, are fairly fond of using Onmyodo and Onmyodo points, and so the Onmyoji here are reflective of these ancient, strange, reclusive magic users that have been kind of chased out of the courts of the Empire and are left to their own devices now. I like the idea of one of these guys becoming the bone saw or sawbones, augmentation doctor for folks that maybe can't afford one of the nicer clinics in New Edo. So Onmyoji, they get a quality 3 weapon and a set of quality 2 clothing. The quality 3 weapon I'll get back to later at the end of this. But they gain 1d8 in either Arcana, Eloquence, or Sleight of Hand. So this 1d8 is a bonus skill focus that is in addition to the skill dice that you'll be assigned during character or priority buy. And you will gain one of these 3, 1d8 in any of these 3 at every path rank. And so it's free training basically from your path, because in the further you go in skills, they can become particularly expensive from an XP development perspective. And so this is an extra easy way to say, well, what have I learned from my path beyond some cool fates? The technical training. Now, as you can see, Arcana, Eloquence, and Sleight of Hand are not the most useful tools for a cybernetic Ripper Doc, but I like the idea of this guy being a bit of a talker, so I'm going to give him 1d8 in Eloquence. Pardon me. I go to the second page of the character sheet, and I can just write in Eloquence and give him a d8. For those of you that are new to the game, you can have up to 5 ranks in any of your skills. To accomplish anything in the game that is difficult, you roll a core trait, your strength, dexterity, intelligence, whatever, plus a skill. And the skills have different focus dice. You can choose a d4, d6, d8, or d12. Skipping d10, because d10 is only applicable to core traits for reasons that I won't go into here, because I think most of you guys are familiar with this already. It's good to put this in your path free skill in first, so you don't forget about it later. And you can start to make notes on what bonuses you will get with those skills. But rank 1 in any skill doesn't give you any bonus. So for now, we can just leave this. Jesus, D8. Drinking beer while doing the streams is maybe not the best idea. Too late now. Okay. So next on the OG, the TN of rotes cast against me is increased by rank times 2. So not only can they not use, well, they can use magic. There's nothing preventing them specifically from using it. But they are more resistant to magic in a way that nobody else in the world is. Yeah, just going to make me slightly gassy, but, you know, what can you do? So I will go to the character sheet and make note of this. I tend to lump all of a character's path and, you know, kind of one-shot abilities, one-time abilities into one box here, because you'll find that you start to fill up with lots of unique skills. So it depends on how much you may forget about them or whatnot, but these boxes are meant to be use them as you want them kind of thing. So that's noted. And finally, I get this 15% fate item affinity. Item affinity lets this character nab something loose from around the room within 10 meters and teleport it to his hand. Can be behind glass, can be in somebody else's hand. It can't pull some clothes off somebody, but if somebody's holding a sword or a gun, this can grab it. And there's intervening physical barriers don't affect this. It's teleportation. It's rooted in the Onyoji's affinities. Their powers are a bit more eclectic, summoning and geomancy and stuff like that, and this is tied to that. So I can go to the fate card and find a slot to put item affinity. And it has a 15% chance. I want to leave room on either side of it because the fates associated with your main path increase at every rank, and you can use experience to increase them. So I tend to want to leave number space in between. For example, I don't want to put it at 59 or 63 here. So I'm just going to start at 75 and go to 89. There's that. That's too many? No, that's right. It's a 15% chance to roll item affinity. And I'll just make a quick note. 10 meter range. But because I'm familiar with it, I don't need to make much more of a note here. They'll be up to you whether you want to say maybe copy all of this information over here, for example, item affinity, if this is your first character, the first time you're playing through, etc. But I'm not going to do that at the moment. So those abilities is all that you get from your path. Paths are not intended to define what your character can do. As we're seeing here, I'm making a weird magician who's also a Ripperdoc. They give you bonuses, and so it's obvious that you can optimize your role. If you want to be a tank or the DPS or a stealthy ninja or whatever it may be, your path can optimize that. But there's nothing stopping me from making a very effective Ripperdoc out of a strange magician path. So they are flexible. They flavor your character more than defining what it can or can't do. So that gets us done with the non-priority parts of character creation. And gets us to the fun part of priority purchase. So priorities with 9 viewers, I assume everybody's been through this at least once. Maybe not. Phobophobian, I gather you have not. Fucking hold on one sec. So the priority buy process allows you to highly customize your character for character creation. Do you want to make a samurai tank or a samurai DPS or a samurai sweet talker or a samurai magician, but still be able to use your katana? This lets you do that while still being able to fall generally into some role that you envision for your character. The priorities that you will be, the abilities that you're prioritizing are core traits, your strength, intelligence, etc., skills, augmentations, magic, and backgrounds. And this part is really why I'm doing this. Is the sorry, one sec. There's an efficient way to go through this process as you make every character that helps some of the flipping back and forth. So I think I'll go through that. Sorry, one sec. No, all magic cast against them specifically or on them specifically. There's not a lot of spells, other than basic healing ones, that target players rather than players' equipment or circumstance or whatnot. But there are enough. These guys are just resistant to magic in general, for better or worse. But good question. I need to make sure that that's clarified. If not in the quick start, certainly in the book. So the priority buy is where you decide what role you want your character to play in your nightly adventures. You can make a magician tank by building the right or choosing the right priorities. I have had one of those choices taken out of my hands because I wanted him to be a Hisanaka, one of the cyborgs, which requires, as you can see here, that I assign him priority A in augmentations. You guys are going to be pissed off because I'm going to use my Russ Rollins cheat sheet for this. Typically, you would go to your character sheet and write down, whether pencil or not, priority A, augmentations, priority B, priority C, whatever they are. There's not a space for that on the character sheet because it's something you only use once during character creation. But in the character sheet's already a little bit busy, so I decided not to put it in there. But the sheet itself is obviously open to adaptation over the next few months of playtesting before publication. So if anyone has input, I'm very happy to listen to it. But I have a spreadsheet that I made for this purpose because going through this 50 times with trying to test out all my characters and make sure that things work on paper is a laborious and lengthy process. So you guys don't have access to this, and it hasn't been updated during the last month or so as I've been making tweaks. So I can't promise that this is going to work perfectly. But this is what I generally want to create with that last stretch goal of a digital character sheet, one that will help players quickly breeze through character creation that can sometimes be a little bit mathy. So I apologize for teasing you with this, and I will consider releasing it to the Discord. With everyone having to understand that it isn't perfect at the moment, it's a bit of a work in progress, and it is not a pretty spreadsheet. It's not set up for um, fashion. It's set up for function. So, but here you can see that I've got all the place to put these in, and my OGs have been assigned priority A. Is this even going to work? Yeah. All right. Well, oh, right there. So 54 points of trait noise. I'll get into that in a moment. Just means that I have a lot of points I can spend on augmentations, cybernetic augmentations for the character. That because that choice was taken out of my hand, it was easy to put there. Um, while you're making a character, the first thing that you should usually go to in priority buy is backgrounds. What do you see the context of your character being? Are they rich? Are they poor? Are they known? Are they unknown? Are they a famous influencer or a politician or a race car driver or whatever? Um, Backgrounds provide context that are not specifically related to your character's abilities. And they can change in game, but not with it. What separates a sorry, I'm reading questions here. Separates Hisanaka versus a character that adds OGs. It's assumed that the Hisanaka has added so many OGs or replaced so much of their body that they are no longer mostly human. Um, I haven't set a system wherein if you add enough augmentations to your body, do you effectively become the Hisanaka? This is kind of a quick cheating way of saying I want to play a robot in New Edo, but I don't want to. It's too early to have built a robot with 50 augmentations. But I still like the aesthetic and concept of having a quasi cybernetic creature or character. So the bonuses you get as a Hisanaka on day one, you will never recreate by just assigning yourself or implanting more augmentations. Um, Obviously, quite feasible that later on you'll have way more power out of your future augmentations than you would just as a Hisanaka. And also, Hisanaka, you only get, well, you get these 54 points, and you'll see, because I think I know what I'm going to take, he's only going to have two cybernetic augmentations. But despite those two, he's still going to be mostly a robot. So it's more of a conceptual where do you want to start? And if you want your character to be this robot forevermore, you have to assign that priority now. But like any of the lineages, they're not prescriptive. You know, being this robot character doesn't make you invincible. It doesn't make you a superhero any more than other characters are. So while you get the few bonuses now that a character that later adds game breaky or anything like that, lineages in general are flavor or fluff to your character. They certainly have bonuses and they certainly have personalities, but all of that can be overridden just based on how you want to play your character. So it is like all of the other lineages. It is mostly a character design option rather than optimization or min maxing or anything like that. I hope that answers your question. Um, so back to priorities, it's usually easier to think about whether or not backgrounds are important to your character. Because the bonuses that you get from backgrounds tend to trickle out and affect other things while not needing any input from other parts of your character versus the rest of the character sheet tends to be interconnected. Starting with backgrounds is a pretty easy, clear spot to say, okay, backgrounds, once you put those in, you don't have to worry. You go back and make sure that you've counted them up properly. Like once you get them right the first time, then they can be done. And conceptually, it's easier because as you think of what your character is or should be, you should kind of know, well, do they need any money? Or do they have any status in the empire for some reason? Are they part of a corporation or a minor family? Or are they should they have been around for 200 years, 500 years, something cool like that? Um, for this character, I gotta think of a name for him. You guys feel free to chuck up suggestions. Uh, I think that backgrounds are going to be somewhat important. He needs to have some money because he needs to have a shop. Otherwise, no one's going to let them operate on him out of his backpack. So having a little bit of extra cash at the start of the game, Enoch. I like it. All right. Vaguely biblical. Is that biblical? Pardon me, I'm a heathen. Um, I'm going to assign backgrounds to priority D, which is the second worst, but still gives him some points to play with. You'll see that that gives him 20 points of background. In this table is the same as in the quick start. And if it isn't, I need to make sure it is. But it should be. You didn't know that Enoch was biblical? Or didn't know something about the game? Either way, it's cool. Once you think of where your backgrounds fall, and backgrounds tend to be more useful in campaigns that will have or characters or campaigns that will have a higher social element, um, status, wealth, age, even all of these things. Contacts are incredibly useful in all games. Find that they have a higher, ping rate in social games than in combat games. Because this guy's an NPC, I have the liberty to give him, to focus a bit more on backgrounds. Pure combat characters will often end up with backgrounds chucked into D or E, as far as priorities go. But as you play games with higher intrigue or just higher social levels, backgrounds can be really useful at the start. If you find that you're not needing to swing a sword or shoot a gun every game, then the added benefit of having a bit of wealth or status, more contacts or followers, stuff like that, really will smooth out your evenings and give you a leg up over somebody that's just a shit kicker. That being said, I can go to backgrounds and assign 20 points. So backgrounds all start at 1, and one of the Discord members, Young Seneca, no, it was, I forget who it was, asked me why backgrounds start at 1 but core traits start at 10, and it was a very good question. I'm going to change the game because of it. It will mean some rebalancing of all of this, but the effect will basically be the same. But the disconnect between having one of your stats start at 1 while the rest of your stats start at 10 is a bit confusing. So we can ignore that for now. I'm going to run through this with the way that you guys have been playing the game and reading the game in the quick start. But just for the future's reference, I'm going to change this to start at 11 and probably make it fungible such that if you don't want to have a little bit of a boost in your age, your wealth, you can trade points from A to B, which gives you a bit more flexibility with your backgrounds and should let characters start with more background RP customization than the current setup does without imbalancing or making anything more powerful necessarily. So let's call him Enoch. Enoch has 20 extra points to assign, and I think I need to get to 30 before I can get to rank 2 in backgrounds. Or sorry, rank 3 in backgrounds. So 20 points. Yeah. So rank 1 is between 1 and 10, and each of these ranks are a dice, a 1d10 that you can roll when you think you should be able to use that background, whether it's wealth, status, etc. So having an extra rank is important not just for the path, or sorry, the rank abilities that it says in the background description, but also for when you just randomly want to pull out something like some other narrative style game, say, well, I should be able to do this because I thought of it before. Backgrounds give you that ability in this game. Like, well, I should be able to talk my way into this restaurant without making a bunch of rolls because I'm part of the Matsumoto family. Okay, roll your status. 2d10. Okay, off you go. So backgrounds can be used as a flexible, cheat when rolling pure game skill stats is not necessarily, or you don't want to bog down the game with conflict resolution. So I'm going to, because I like the idea of my guy being a little bit older, I'm going to give him 10 points in age, which will put him up to 11. and I'm going to give him 10 points of wealth so he can have a couple of bucks. He's not going to be a fancy Ripper Doc. He's the kind of guy that you're going to go to get a shady install or something fixed that you had blown out. But characters like this, sorry, characters that are um, fixing and affecting augmentations need access to a laboratory. The quick start doesn't have those rules for installation of augmentations, just because I was trying to limit the mini games basically. But installation of augmentations is a fun mini game itself. Scott's blind playtester table just got access to those rules, and hopefully he'll gossip about them in the main Discord chat for anyone that hasn't heard them yet. But they allow you to add augmentations later in the game for the price of cash only, and the chance to permanently fuck up your body. So I'll go back to my character cheat sheet here and add 10 points to each of these. And keep in mind I'm just adding 10 and putting in 11 here. And this thing has calculated for me that I've used all my background points. And again, something like this is what I hope to build for once we hit that stretch goal, to make it easier on everybody, because I know that this is way easier than keeping track of everything on paper. So I will go to his character sheet. On the second page, age becomes 11, everything else stays 1, and wealth becomes 11. And the roll, 2d10 there, 1, 1, 1, and 2. So anytime something comes up where he thinks he should be able to get away with rolling, or sorry, have something because he's got a couple of bucks, or use his age to social advantage, which is definitely a contextual possibility in the world of New Edo, you can roll 2d10 for either one of those. Otherwise, he's just rolling 1d10 to maybe get away with, say, does he know a gunrunner contact in the Akiba neighborhood? Difficulty 8, but roll a 1d10, let's see if you can do it. I'm not going to fill in all the descriptions here, but you would fill in the descriptions from the background section of the quick start. So that's priority D. I already have A. We'll go through my selection of those later on. It's other than background, it's usually easiest to figure out what I don't need rather than what you do need. So this guy does not need magic. It could be useful in the future, but Onmyoji as a path don't get access to magic automatically. So he would need to find a way to force himself into having Shinpi, the core trait that grants you access to speak to the kami. And because that's not necessary for his role as a street doctor, it's easy for me to just put magic priority E. And when you assign E to either Augs or magic, you can never use those abilities. So he can never ever use magic, no matter what happens. So this is a permanent effect of the priority buy process. He's just a separate from, can't speak to, doesn't understand, can't hear, barely believes in the kami of the world, which is what drives magic in New Edo. Which makes sense. The guy's half robot or 3/4 robot, and he may be separated from the spiritual world. There's no lore that makes that so. You could have a Hisanaka or a highly augmented character that is also a magic user. There's some systems and balance reasons why I've made augmentations resource heavy into core traits and magic resource heavy into skills, because both of those are cheater bonus extra abilities. And when you try to balance a game, giving somebody access to all of them without any repercussions or resource allocation means that some characters will be swinging a sword as a traditional samurai and be bored to tears because the guy next to them shooting laser out of their eyes while throwing fireballs and turning invisible. So you can be a magic user and use cybernetics. There's nothing that restricts that except for the mechanics of the game that make it a bit more resource heavy. So, because he's got magic E, it's usually good to go to your character sheet if you have E in magic or E in augmentations and just X them out. So magic, X, X, he's never going to get access to this. And just so in the future you don't forget what you assigned your E priority to, X will never have Shinpi, which is the core trait, um, to speak to Kemi. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like he will be resource heavy. He will probably be a bit clumsy on day one. You'll wish you had more skills or higher core traits, but you can add that all later with experience points. Um, you build a character like that, and on day one, you might be slightly less effective than a guy that just went pure martial arts or pure, gun-toting mercenary. But you'll have more options, problem-solving options later on in the game, and you might be a bit more of a jack of all trades versus an expert swordsman or an expert marksman, something like that. There's no lore to suggest why. Being cybernetic doesn't stop you from speaking to the kami. Just so happens that Enoch here, partially because he's a Onmyoji, just doesn't fucking believe in this new modern fancy magic. He prefers the old ways, which is totally ineffective for the most part. Okay, so back to priorities. We've gone through two of them now, knowing that I have uh, to still get to Oggs, leaving me. So I've got A, E, and D. I need B and C. So putting backgrounds down first is just easier. Oh, actually, why don't we go, sorry, and just do a quick double check here. In backgrounds, age, he has 2 ranks. So he gets +3 heart and +3 presence. Age gives bonuses to your core traits. So I should go and mark that down before I fucking forget. +3 and +3 presence, right? Yeah. Keeping in mind that all these start at 10. And the wealth that he has 2 ranks in isn't used for statistics, it's used for buying shit, which I'm not going to get into too much here. Any questions so far? I feel like I've gone through this fast, but it's already been an hour and I feel like I'm going too slow now. Okay. You guys just ask questions anyways as we go. So, I need to assign B and C. When you're building your character, it's usually easier if you take any magic, if you're a magic using class, to do your magic first and then your skills, regardless of what order you put the priority, because magic uses skills. To cast your rotes, your spells, requires you to roll your Shinpi, the magic core trait, plus a skill roll. You can get away with just having a high Shinpi roll, which is D10s. But if you want to specialize in anything, it's good to know what spells you're taking, because then you can think about adding dice, to your skills. Similarly, for augmentations, their resource, as it were, is core traits. Augmentations have a drain on your core traits. Basically, the more you colonize parts of your body with mechanical parts, you have to have a stronger, faster, smarter, smoother system to let that work. So trait noise is the limiting factor on augmentations, the balancing factor on them, because augmentations don't require experience to buy. In the future, you just need some cash and access to a guy like we're creating here today, and so you can't just run out, get rich, and turn into a super robot mecha on day 2. You need to increase the strength, speed, and intelligence of your character to assign or install more augmentations. So when you're building your characters, do magic before you do skills, and do augmentations before you do core traits. Doesn't mean that one has to be more important or have a higher priority. It's just do it in that order so you know what you need before you go on to your next one. So we have 54 points of trait noise. This is crunchy and could maybe be used to improve, but I'm open to input. Everyone seems to have adapted to it. The lore makes sense. The systems make sense. It's just math-y, unfortunately. So, because this guy is going to be a Ripper Doc, effectively, we go and look at the list of augmentations. And I know he's going to probably want a bit of the Biopharma Deluxe. This gives you the ability to heal other characters. Thank you, Mr. C. It makes sense. It's just mathy. If there is a more elegant way, I keep trying to find elegant ways to solve for this, to still give the resource allocation, balance them, but make character creation and development a bit easier for people. Not everybody loves math. But this works at the moment, and it isn't the end of the world, and especially if I can get this digital character sheet out to everybody, which we're inching closer to, then a lot of the math lifting can hopefully be taken off people's shoulders. Anyway, so Biopharma Deluxe, which used to be called Back to Tanks, is just an augmentation that lets you heal yourself and others without needing magic. There's not a lot of ways to heal in the game, but this is one that anybody can take. Now, it is slightly resource heavy, as you'll see here. So, trait noise, every augmentation has a drain on one of your core traits, if not two. So Biopharma has 6 trait noise on Heart and 2 trait noise on Savvy. And you have to multiply those numbers by the rank that you want to install. Because I have 54 points of trait noise to spend, this is only 8 for this to get to rank 1, because 1 times these numbers is 8. To make him useful at all to other characters, he needs up to 3 ranks, because that's when he can finally start to heal others. At 2, he can heal himself. At 1, his rest modifier increases, so he can heal more every night when he sleeps. Characters in Nuido don't automatically heal up every night. So I need to get to 3 ranks in this Biopharma to make him heal when he sometimes accidentally nicks an artery when he's trying to install your cybernetic arms. So, to get to 3, I need to multiply both these numbers by 3. So, Heart, 6 times 3 is 18. Savvy, 2 times 3 is 6. So you go to your character sheet and mark that down in these little boxes here. So I need 18 Heart, 6 times 3, and Savvy of 6, 2 times 3. You have to exceed your trait noise with your trait. So that's the limiting factor here. Currently he only has 16 Heart, and technically he can't install this augmentation. I just know that we haven't got to his core trait resources yet, so I'm going to add in points. But that's where the balancing effect of trait noise comes. If you want to have something super handy or medicinal like, you need to have the Heart and the fortitude to project that outwards. All of them have a loose lore or reasoning tie, logic tie to their trait noise. Exceed, not meet. You have to meet. So he needs 18 points of Heart because he's got 18 trait noise in Heart. And that the trait noise doesn't reduce your Heart. So if somebody says, oh, you have to roll your Heart, which doesn't happen very often, but the trait noise doesn't negatively affect it. It is just a limit. Sorry, my bad. You need to meet it, not exceed it. So I've put in the trait noise here, and we'll get back to that. I have to add in all of these 3 abilities. I'm going to kind of breeze over that at the moment. Where I would put that on the character sheet is here. So he's got 3 ranks in the Biopharma Deluxe. Because these are usable powers, legend powers, I would typically record them up here. Actually, I might as well just do that. So you don't forget. You want to put your powers that your abilities, paths, augmentations, magic, all that shit grants you up front, because when it's out of sight, it's out of mind, and you'll forget to use it, which defeats the purpose. And with a new game and a new system and all of that, you need the visual reminders. It needs to be front and center. So the character sheet may change, and I may put out more options for more advanced players or players that have spent more time with the game to make it a bit more specific. But for now, having these things front and center is usually a good idea for you. I would make a note that these are based on his augmentation, but again, I don't need to get into that right now. The last important thing here to note on my Biopharma Deluxe is that it has a 1% chance of biofeedback. So on the character sheet, I put that here. I put that. Come on, what's going on? Right. Sorry, guys. This form fillable character sheet was a fucking pain in the ass. And if there's a better way to do it, I'm open to it. Let's just get this digital one funded so we don't have to fight with this anymore, okay? Anyways, 1% biofeedback. Biofeedback is a chance for your body to reject in the moment or to react in the moment based on the amount of parts you've installed that are replaced with machines. I'm not going to go too much into it, but the biofeedback chance needs to be assigned to your fate card. So he has at least one here, but I'm going to add more augmentation, so I'm not going to do the math quite yet. Next, as far as spending the resources from his character priority buy, I've used up 18 plus 6, so 24 of his trait noise abilities or trait noise resources. I think, let's see if my spreadsheet is up to date. So let's see if I put biofeedback, Biopharma 3. No. There we go. And that should be reflected on the main page with, yeah, so 6 and 18, so the same as the PDF. Let's see what's that saying here. All right, that's not working. That's fine. So I still have 30 points because you notice I start with 54, spend 24. We now have 30 left. So I will go back to the augmentation section. Scroll through. The other one I'm going to select for him, I know I'm kind of breezing through this. We can get into the pros and cons of all of them on the Discord. This isn't the place for it. Is pheromone secretions. I want him to be a bit of a sweet talker. So again, his role will be augmentations, but because he's kind of got a support role, NPC vibe, I've got the luxury of just giving him more chitter chatter ability than say pure fighting ability. Go through all the same process, but if you add the two numbers in this box, you see it's 10. So he can get up to 3 ranks in this to use up the last 30 points in his priority buy. So I'm just going to go and do that to get through this. So I'm going to put presence times 6 times 3 up here. His present needs to be 18. Sorry, that's 18 trait noise. And then savvy of 4 times 3 is 12. So savvy already had 6, so I have to add 12 to that, which is 18. So that uses up all of his trait noise. Pheromone secretions also has 1%, I believe. Yep, 1% biofeedback. So that has used up all of his rank A, priority rank A resources. So I will note that he has 2% biofeedback chance. Botch, by the way, is 0.1 to 0.3. Biofeedback is 0.4 to 0.5. There's no, I could put this at 99 and 98 or whatever it may be. There's no downside to putting high numbers, bad things high, low numbers high. It doesn't matter. It's all just random chance. But psychologically, I like to lump the negatives and the positives together. And if you've got a favorite number, use that for your favorite ability, whatever it may be. My favorite number is 42. But let's see. I think I've done everything. So pheromone secretions. Here's another cool thing. So fate card, he gets to add a 1% chance to gain 1 point of the follower's background. So I can just go in here, put 42, again, any number, gain 1%, or sorry, 1% chance, sorry. Yeah, and every character starts with the botch and crit, and those are pre-assigned to the lowest and the highest. Um, and every path has path-specific abilities. Not every character will end up with a lot of this fate card filled out on day one. 15 to 20% chance sometimes. But one of our viewers here today is a top tier min maxer who broke my game on day one, and he found a build that got him 52% added up of his fate card full on the first day. Quinn, that was fucking epic. And so you'll have lots of time or lots of options to fill in any numbers that you want here. And I will put gains plus 2d4 to all social rolls. And that's what the pheromone secretions do, is plus 1d4 and plus another d4. That's a pretty broad, handy thing. Whether he's trying to scare somebody, sweet talk somebody, convince somebody, he gets plus 2d4 to that, because the pheromone secretions are just him spritzing magic emotion goop on people. He's replaced his actual charm with chemical charm, which is, I think, the nature of beer goggles. To Mr. C's point, the lines in your fate card, you can use experience to increase. So if you find one that you really like, rather than increasing a skill or a core trait or buying a new spell with experience points, you can increase this once per session each, such that you can't just add 30 in a good day with experience points. But you can increase these all later, which is quite possibly broken. We'll have to wait till we get some later tier characters, but it's limiting enough that I want to reward players who build a good fate card. The whole game is about making your own fate, exemplified in the fate card. And if you have a custom build that gives you a fucking awesome fate card, then that should be rewarded at your table by your storyteller. Okay, let's go back to the build here. Actually, I'll tell you what, hold on. Give me 2 minutes. I'm going to go grab a beer and chug some water, because I haven't talked this long for ages. So just give me a moment. I'll be right back. I apologize, and I don't know how to pause my recording. So I'll just be back. I wish I put a movie on there. Now I've thought of it. I'll do it next time, I promise. Be right back. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, fuck. I don't know if I should allow crits to be increased. I think that, in fact, I thought that I wrote that crits and botches were not affectable by experience. But maybe that's not in the quick start. And it does cost you, what's he increased it? Oh, anyways, whatever. Okay. I've got B and C left. Yeah, and you can only increase it once per session. And if you've played a ton of sessions, then you should be able to customize your character that way, and you've foregone other development options to do so. And it's still only a 10% chance. So, no, I mean to reduce your botch chance, but I'm not. I mean, there are a few negative fates that can come up, especially ones that are assigned to you during play if you do stupid shit. But you can't reduce your fate lines with experience. You can only increase them. But yeah, if you wanted to increase your botch for funny hilarity, then you probably have some offsetting bonus to that. Okay, so traits and skills. These are two sides of the same coin. How does this character get shit done? Um, uh, uh, Traits are your raw ability, your raw talent, and skills are things that you've learned. Traits use D10s because D10s explode. I think, Phobo, that you're the only new player here, the new audience here. Are you familiar with the World of Darkness or Legend in the Five Ring systems? You roll a d10, and if you get 10, you get to roll that 10 again, and you get 10, you get to roll that again, that d10 again, such that even if you only have 2d10 to roll, you have the yeah, okay. So same as that. In fact, the skill systems work the same here too, except that you don't use d10s for your skills. Use a d4, 6, 8, or 12. Okay. Because the skills give bonuses, new abilities, kind of like specializations, but they don't have the chance to explode. Um, this guy is going to have B in his traits because I want to make sure that he's flexible enough to get a few things done without having the specializations. He only needs a few skills to do what he does because, again, NPC, or at least NPC target. So I now have 29 points to assign through the core traits. You recall that on. I won't use this, that's too cheating. So I've been keeping track of the various things that give bonuses, and now that's important. So at the very least, I start with 29. Here, let's just write this in somewhere. 29 points. I need to put at least 2 into heart because otherwise he can't use that augmentation that he's got. So that's an easy one there. But from there, he's going to have medicine and wetware, which are savvy skills, intelligence. And so I want his savvy to be at least 20. And the way this works here, Phobo, is if you have between 10 and 19 of something, you roll 1d10. If you have 20, between 20 and 29, you roll 2d10, etc. The reason that there's iterative integers is because they will derive other traits of your character. Yes, thank you. So I put 10 into Savvy to give him at least 20, and then 2 into these two obligatory ones. So that leaves him with 15 more. The most you can put into anything is 15, but that's from these points specifically. So all of these other bonuses, the plus 3 here, plus 3 there, don't apply to that 15 max. The 15 is from the original 29. So you'll find many ways to add to your various core traits through character creation. The 15 is a maximum of these priority buy points. So he's got 15 left. So I think it's probably worthwhile. You don't roll heart a lot. Heart determines your hit points. Presence he may roll quite a bit more because he's supposed to be a talker. So I think it's probably worth putting some more into that. At least 2. So he has 20. Reflex is how quick he is. Not the most important for this guy. He's also a slightly decrepit robot, so reflex may not be that important. Perception is obvious from many games. It's your ability to notice things. But Nuido also uses perception for ranged combat. So if you're trying to shoot somebody with a gun, this isn't a dexterity game. It's a how accurate can you be? How sensitive are you to wind speed, etc. But he's not going to be shooting anybody, so perception I can leave low. Is it a viable dump stat for him? Possibly, yeah. If he ever does get into combat, I do picture him using a knife or even a sword. That's based on power. So I could use, I still have, that's 16, I still have 13 left. I could put 7 more here to give him 20 in power, which gets me to what? 6, 23. I got 6 points left. I'm just going to put 3 into each of his savvy and his presence. So somebody do the math. Did I get that right? 29 points. And so that all totals. Now I can go and do the totals. 20, 18, 20. Oops. It was 23. 23. And 18. 18. So this is a kind of a medium rounded character. You'll find that at what was it, Quinn? I think 43. We figured it was the highest you can get in any of these at the start of the game. But that's a glass cannon, one use, one shot character that if you fart on her, she's dead. This is a slightly more rounded character. It's only 2 points off of having a higher heart roll. Quite a ways off hitting three dice in anything. But whether he's trying to take care of himself or solve a problem or sweet talk somebody, he's got those 2 d10 to roll, so that's good enough for day one. Yeah. The other thing that you'll do during this part of the character creation is determine your derived traits. Resolve and defense, they're all a function of your core traits. Initiative is the easiest of the bunch. The little lines here actually connect the core traits that help drive those derived traits. Initiative is just equal to savvy plus reflex. Very straightforward. No big deals there. Move is your reflex plus your heart divided by your size, which is where the size comes into how fast you can move. I am not going to do that in my head, but it's 10 plus 18, and then you times that by 0.4, and you round up. Everything is rounded up in the game. Oh, sorry, no, I did that wrong. Reflex plus heart, sorry guys, divided by size. 5.6, move is 6, and we use metric in this game, sorry for the Americans. That's 6 meters per round, and a meter is the same as, well, it's 3 feet in real life, but if you play based on a grid, you can just say that your grid is 1 meter. Everything is round up. Everything. Yeah, Quinn, it may have said, I think that the only place where it said round down was Rotes, but I did change that based on some interaction on the Discord, because I don't like having special rules, I just want universal rules. And everything rounds up is more fun than everything fucking rounds down, so I just went with that. I think it's probably thrown the balance of some of the Rotes off, but I'm sure that you'll get that figured out in the next little while, or we'll do it in the next couple of weeks. Resolve is your heart plus your presence times 0.4. So 18 plus 23. 16.4 round up is 17. And defense similarly is your power plus your reflex, that's easy, 30 times 0.4. 12. Your defense forms the difficulty for anybody else to hit you with a stick. Not to hit you with a gun, but any melee or unarmed attacks on you use your defense as their target number. There's modifiers that may come through various things. He only has a +5 modifier to resolve at the moment because of his Hisanaka lineage. But we haven't gone through the skills yet, so I'm going to leave the final numbers just in case his skills give him any bonuses. At the moment, though, that's it for his core traits. So let me go and do the skills, and then we can define the finishing touches. Oops, that's not what we want. So skills is... Oops. Oh, did I make... No, C. There we go. So when you have C assigned to skills, let's just make sure that my dated spreadsheet matches the quick start, which is the current rules are official in the quick start. C, 3d8, 2d6, 2d4. So Phobo, to our earlier point about World of Darkness, you have your skills have focus here, which is the name for the dice that are not d10s for skills. And you can assign at C 3 d8s, 2d6, and 2d4s to your character's focus. So I will go to the PDF and think, which ones do I absolutely need? He needs Wetware, which is his ability to install OGs. He needs some ability to sweet talk people, but he's got Eloquence there because that's part of what his character concept is. Let me see, let's go through the skills list here. I want him to have the minimal ability to defend himself, so I'll probably give him a melee skill. Let's say heavy melee. I'm going to give him 2d6 in that. So that uses up both of the d6s that were available to me as part of the priority buy. Seen here. And when you're making your character, you just scratch it out or help this thing get to 30,000 in funding so we can goddamn get the digital character sheet made. It may be cheaper than that. I may be able to get it done regardless. I just have a quote for $5,000 for the thing, and that's after tax and everything. So I hope to be able to get it done, and I'm going to keep pushing because it would make everybody's life easier. Now, this is where you will go into your skills and see heavy melee. That's your ability to fight with two-handed big sticks, basically, or swords, or anything that is a melee weapon with two hands. But at rank 2, he gains this permanent bonus. Add rank, and in this place it means your skill rank, to your defense. So he's got 2 ranks in this skill, so he's going to add 2 points to his defense. Which is useful because he's otherwise got a fairly low defense score. Easy to hit with a stick. Let's go down because we know he's going to need some medicine and wetware. I'm going to give him 3 points in wetware just because it's the point of the build. Wetware isn't exciting from a pure action adventure main character role because it is predominantly used for augmentation installation, but it is definitely a sort of thing that if you've got lots of skill points kicking around, throwing 1 or 2 points in would be useful for fixing your friend's augmentations, installing your own, etc. More of a mini game rather than a main character role, but is definitely necessary to give characters the option to do so if they want, rather than just make it a non-player role. So 3 ranks in that. I have 3d8 and 2d4 left. I'm going to give him 2 8s and a 4. And for anyone's benefit that hasn't or been worried about this, doesn't matter what order you put these in. 4 8 4, 4 8 8, 8 8 4, whatever it may be. Nothing will subtract from your skill dice, to make you worry like, okay, I have to make sure that my highest numbers are at the top. So this is just a tally. Um, and then wetware has this special ability, source inspection. I'm just going to make note of this up here, and it lets him take a quick look at some of these augmentations and figure out where he got them installed. Excuse me. Yeah, well, you've used it for 50 characters because you haven't had something that's slightly more user friendly. But I'm glad that it's not all by pencil, though. This is the only time I've used this form fillable. Otherwise, I use pen and paper all the time, or pencil and paper all the time. And so that leaves me with what? I have 1d8 and 1d4 left, I think, from my form fillable is based. What do you mean? I was born in the 70s, so some of the slang I don't get unless that's just a typo. I've used 2d8, 2d6, and 1d4, leaving me 1d8 and 1d4 left. I'm going to put it in medicine. It is very nice. I'm glad. Fucking thing took me like 5 hours to create all those little boxes, and I know that they're not all perfect. We'll get it fixed up before the book goes to print, I promise. So he's going to take medicine for his last 2 points, which is handy because both 1 and 2 in medicine give you bonus abilities. So even though he has his biopharma augmentation, he also has other options to use to heal here. I'm not going to go through all that because it is... Actually, here, let's take a quick look. Administer, let's increase the rest modifier. So this is field surgery, lets you heal somebody else. You roll medicine skill only, not your savvy. Cost 10 legend. Legend's your meta currency in the game, Fobo. And your full action on the turn. And this guy will be able to heal 1d8 plus 1d4 on a target. Now, how does that compare with target heal from his augmentation? The augmentation's far more expensive for resources and has much more potential because of its D10s. And field surgery can only be used once on a target in between rests. You can't continuously duct tape some of these bullet wounds. You just get to do it once. So this feels balanced to me in that 3d10 is a pretty good potential that you can continue to do as long as you have your legend resource available. This is a slightly lower legend, and it may be a fairly high... If you have 5d12 in your medicine ability, you'll be able to heal that on somebody 5d12 all at once, but you can't use it on them again. So between these two powers, they're flexible and balanced in my mind. I don't know if they're both necessary for this character. I'm not going to go into it anymore at this point, though. Any questions on that? Do you guys understand that? Do you disagree on that balance analysis? That's kind of what we're doing here. Scott and Quinn and that table, those guys playing it out really helps, but everybody's been doing a good job on the Discord of tearing my game to pieces. And I'm very open to input. I will debate if I feel that something is balanced. There hasn't been a lot of discussion of lore of whether something should be or should not be. But as far as tweaking the balance and the mechanics, I've had a lot of fun interacting with people in the Discord, which is the primary means of communication, and I'm on there for 10 or 20 hours a day. So, so again, if anyone has an opinion on whether, well, I don't think that anybody would probably take both of these abilities because they're overlap, but their balance seems to make sense to me. So that used up all his skill points. I didn't record the details of all of his stuff, but it's all in here and I can fill it in later. I haven't assigned him a weapon yet. I will get to that. Let's just finish up these points up here. So your heart times 2, because you remember that he was an Oni, so his HP modifier modifier went from 1.5 to 2.0. So it's just 2 times your heart equals your max health. Again, round up if you're using decimals. And then this 36 times 0.9, 0.75, 0.25, 0.1, and well, 0 is easy, is your wound tiers, which is something that is from an older version of L5R. Basically, as you get more hurt, things get harder to do. Death Spiral. I think this is a fairly forgiving one. I don't like a game where somebody with 1 hit point or like their last shred of health is still shooting perfect or attacking perfect or anything like that. This was thrown in to add risk and danger to getting hurt without breaking it into the death spirals. And I haven't found that -5 is necessarily, highly punitive. It is punitive, but it isn't breaking anyone's chance to survive until you get particularly low. At which point there's always new characters to make. I'm not going to go through and do all this math. The spreadsheet does it for me. But I would just fill in 36 times 0.9 and round up. 36 times 0.75 and round up. Finally, your highest core trait is your starting permanent legend. Your permanent legend is your meta currency for all of your superpowers in the game, whether they're magic or augmentations or just cool shit like running up swords or whatever it may be. You can use your permanent legend to add to skill rolls when you want to call a raise, or if you're up against a target number that is probably too high for your dice, you can say, okay, I'm going to spend up to 10 points of my legend to make it easier on myself. Enoch here has 23 permanent legend at the start of the game and 23 temporary legend. You don't lose permanent legend when you spend it, you just lose temporary, very similar to hit points. There's few minor ways to lose permanent legend and lots of ways to gain it. As your meta currency, it is the most important resource that you have in the game. It defines what rank in your path you're at, and there's only 5 ranks. Again, very similar to World of Darkness or L5R. And it drives a bunch of other utility uses. You can get it, most importantly, by just doing cool shit. This guy is meant to be a Ripper Doc with, kind of a sweet talker Ripper Doc. Well, with 1d8, he's not the most sweet talkery. But he, if he goes through his nights and accomplishes something particularly suitable to his legend as a street Ripper Doc that with a bad attitude and a bit of his Hisanaka personality, you can get bonus permanent legend as a reward in the middle of the game. That was particularly cool. Take 2 permanent legend. Add 2 permanent legend. And then at the end of your sessions, you gain permanent legend the same way that you would gain experience points. Permanent legend just goes onto your tally here, typically in the range between 5 and 10 per session. And you will get experience points, which are used, same as World of Darkness, to increase your skills, your traits, your magic, all of that, is typically equal to about 2 times the legend gain. Otherwise, other than filling in details here... Oh, well, here, let's do this. Main weapon. We'll just go through this one quickly. He, if we recall all the way back, has a quality 3 weapon. And because he's got heavy melee, I'm going to pick him a... Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. For your benefit, temporary legend is also used as a reserve store of hit points. So the more of your abilities you burn through, the weaker you are, because once you run out of health, you won't have any backup. So a boring tank that just wants to stand there and swing his sword might not have the most fun, but will probably survive the longest if he's not burning through temporary legend. Versus to iPurser6420, his point, he had a caster that was burning temporary legend left, right, and center, casting abilities, but then got shot once, had no backup, had not a ton of health to begin with, and typical glass cannon got killed in a I think her head got shot off or something like that. I wasn't there for that, sadly. So, weapons quickly to go through this. He gets a a quality 3 weapon. He has heavy melee, so I'm obviously going to pick a heavy melee weapon. Um, higher quality weapons tend to have more bonuses, like these unlocks. Unlocks are a thing when you have a certain rank in a trait or a certain path or stuff like that. The weapon is more useful to you. So hopefully that's intuitive. That if you've got a more complicated weapon, it may just do. If Russ Roland's picked up a heavy axe, well, I could barely lift it. But the more powerful you get, not only does it add more damage, but it also gets other bonuses because you can whirl it around because blah 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 blah. I'm just going to give him a Nodachi because that's the only rank 3. If you are granted a quality weapon, say 3, and you only want the quality 1 weapon, you can give yourself a +1 bonus for each quality difference to either attack or damage. So if I chose the fire axe, he could say do 2d6 damage and go +2 because that's a 2 quality lower weapon, which may actually be optimal depending on what he can do with this Nodachi at the moment. Right, because he doesn't have power 30, so he doesn't get that bonus. Now, the Nodachi has 2 melee range, and the Fire Axe only has 1, so I think these are balanced out, but again, very subject to, or open to input. Oops. Attack roll, power based, so 2d10 based on his 20 power. And then the skill is heavy weapons is 2d6. So 2d10 plus 2d6 for every attack roll. It's a melee weapon, so it just has a short range of 2. He can hit within melee distance of 2 meters, so 2 squares he can reach. Damage is 2d10 power and also 2d6, coincidentally enough. So every time he hits successfully, he's doing 2d10 plus 2d6 damage with this thing. So even though he's your Ripper Doc, he can get angry and whack you pretty good. Damage type is kinetic. Most weapons at the start, damage is kinetic, but you can have eventually elemental weapons, lasers and laser edged items. And there's a few other damage types depending on whether you're casting spells or are a monster, etc. Burst and ammo only apply to ranged weapons, and maybe I'll have a whole fucking presentation on that, but for now we'll just leave those blank. Finally, I don't know, Quinn, in your table if you guys have been using this, but this action economy I find is a great place to remind yourself what you can do with your 3 actions on a turn. So he's got a bunch of abilities that take full actions here, which kind of sucks. Full action is an attack, obviously, but he could pull a source inspection or a target heal or a field surgery. And as you go through building your character, keep an eye on this because you'll find that you're able to key these things together such that you're taking a better optimal use of your 1 quick action, 1 bonus action, move action, and 1 full action. And a lot of the path abilities and path bonuses are tied or networked together such that you get a better action economy out of your character. Not just he gets 2 attacks, but he may attack instead on a quick action rather than a full action, leaving you to do one of your other abilities with your full action. So the first time you go through character creation, the rest of this shit's hard enough. But New Eda was built such that all of these things will start to flatter and synergize with your other abilities and with the other characters in your group, such that you may be able to give somebody else a free bonus or quick action. You may be able to add to others' defense or resolve, etc. But the more time you spend creating your character, the more you'll see that there's these flexible synergies that start to trigger based on your build. Enoch that we've built here today is not optimal from that perspective. Some of his abilities overlap, and all he can do is hit you with a stick or heal you with it. But he was never intended to be a perfect example of this. And maybe we'll go through it. I'll find a great, more kind of advanced character creation walkthrough of all of the cool synergies that you could trigger together by building an optimized character. An optimized character will be more fun for you to play, but it isn't the kind of thing where in some games you're taking more turns than other people, or you end up being a turn hog or a glory hog. You'll get to do a bit more shit, but combat and conflict resolution is such that there isn't a big drag on time with dice rolls, and players are encouraged to ham it up a little bit based on whatever the legend of their characters is, but not. I haven't found that any of these synergies and or internal networking of abilities really creates any drag as far as turns go. I didn't. No, I did all this. The final here is 14, 33, 6, and 22. Phobo, for your benefit, in the quick start, I think it's in character creation. There's a table that shows average difficulties and average rolls. So that can help as you try to frame what a normal character can do. Your average human just has 10 in everything and 10 hit points. Um, but and so you can imagine that I think that gives them a resolve of 8 and a defense of 8. So it's pretty easy to hit somebody with a stick in the street. Um, is there anything here I think as everybody else has been in the Discord for a month at least, and we get into this for hours every day, man. So everyone else, for the most part, I think has read through this thing and debated it with me. Yeah, you quite be right there. I don't want to get into it right now, but we can talk about it in the Discord for sure. Uh, Wetware in general is very much a non-combat ability, but I shouldn't punish them for having one combat ability or one something that you might want to solve a mystery by seeing somebody with a cool augmentation, and where did they get that might be the only way you can hunt them down later. That was the point of this. The difficulty of doing so is why I made it a 10 legend cost, because you imagine that this guy could just stand there and smell some of these augmentation from across the room and say, Jeff down in Akiba installed that. But from a pure utility perspective of not punishing players for using non combat skills, that's a good point. So thank you, Mr. C. I will actually make note of that. I think that's all for this guy. I'm looking at what I could have missed here, other than filling in some details or going into the depths of what everything does. But I tried at the start. I tried to remind people, go through your backgrounds first. If you're going to use magic, do magic before skills. If you're going to use augmentations, do augmentations before core traits. Um, think of the high level of your character, the context, the picture, who they're going to play, what role they're going to play in at your table, before getting into trying to pick your priorities. Because if you don't know what role you want them to play, picking priorities can be intimidating, especially the first time you go through it. And then just as you go through everything, take note and put it on the character sheet. Don't forget to increase your rest modifier. Don't forget to increase your HP mod, or add your defense mod or your resolve mod, stuff like that. Because you'll find that halfway through the game you forgot to, add +3 heart based on having 1 in age, which everybody has. And then you'll have your Kitsune's head get blown off because she doesn't have any hit points left. There was a question of whether crit should be 5 or 6%. It's 5. I think I've written it wrong in the quick start. It should be 96 to 00 is crit. You have a 5% chance to crit and a 3% chance to botch, because botching is not fun. Plus biofeedback adds to the chance to fuck with your day. So I don't want too many turns wasted of characters, because that is an absolute fun killer, regardless of the reality or logic of it. Definitely use the action economy boxes as you go through and accrue your powers. Fill in what you can do with each of them. As you gain in path rank, you may gain the ability to attack on move or quick action, so make note of that. But just even from day one, you may have the ability to do two cool things every turn because you've got both a use for your quick and your full action, which is way more fun than just hitting somebody with a stick every turn. I mean, depending on how you like to play your role-playing games. We didn't go into spells. I'll do another one of these maybe with magic, because magic can be confusing. The equipment boxes here, equipment can gain experience points, and I haven't put that in the quick start again, so it's kind of a mini game. The longer you use a piece of equipment, the more experience it gains, and then you'll get various bonuses with it. So as you get used to using your sword, your assault rifle, your whatever it may be, you can improve it based on its quality. And so that is reflected on the character sheet here, but not necessarily explained very well in the the quick start, because again, the goddamn thing went to 120 pages, so it is already not a quick start. Any questions before I stop? I know I didn't get into pets. There's only one path that uses a pet at rank 1, and that's the Saibishi. Pets add a whole nother layer of complication to this. They're like a secondary character that you can control. Very much like the old hunters from World of Warcraft. But otherwise, that's it for today. I'm just going to sign off and go back into Discord so you guys can all see me soon. And I think I shall stop talking now. All right. Thank you for signing in for this first of what may be many and may not be very many at all of these things, depending on how well it's received. I'm going to save this, and I'm open to every ounce of feedback. I think most of you will have realized this right now. I'm not sensitive about this, and I don't take anything personally. I want this game to get better, and the fact that you guys are willing to humor me during this process makes the game better. And if your advice on how to better run these goddamn streams will certainly make things better in the future for anyone else who might have to suffer or decide to suffer through one. So I will do so. I think I recorded this. I'm going to have a quick breeze through to see if I actually recorded it properly and how many times I farted during the presentation. But otherwise, I will put it up on YouTube and make it put it in the announcements on the Discord. Okay, thanks everybody. I will just be on Discord soon because Beth is out of the house and I got nothing to do for now. So talk to you guys later.